Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlaw Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlaw Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Welcome. Access returns. I'm Alan Miller, and with us today, first-time guest, but a young man who, when I say at home, do you want to go see Dr. Dan? Our dog, our Springer Katie, will run around in circles and jump up and down with excitement because Dan Whitney is a veterinarian with Eagan Pet Clinic, where we've had a series of dogs well cared for over 16, 17 years now. So you came on board in 2013 at Eagan Pet Clinic.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for having me today.
No, a pleasure, a pleasure. Yeah. It's Katie insisted on it. So, how did you decide that being a veterinarian is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, it was kind of instilled in me when I was pretty young. I grew up around it. My father's a veterinarian, and so when we grew up, when I was about 3 or 4 years old, my dad decided to open his own practice. And so we moved to Iowa from Illinois, and he opened up a practice, and he actually built our house right on top of the practice. So we lived on top of the practice, and every day, you know, I'd come home and walk through the halls of the veterinary clinic, then walk upstairs, and so I really grew up around it. So I knew at a pretty young age that that's what I wanted to do with my life.
And how's your dad's practice doing today?
It's doing very well. It's doing very well. He's his practice, I mean, when he first built it, it was kind of out on the edge of town for where he built it at, and you know, it's really kind of questionable as far as how things were going to go, how the town was going to grow around it, and really now it's right in the middle of town.
Well, towns have a way of growing out. Yes.
Yep, and so it's a very busy practice, and things have gone very, very well for him.
And does he have other veterinarians working with him?
He does, yeah. So he's got himself, and then I think he's got 5 other veterinarians there now at this point. So they're all somewhat part-time, but each of them are there, you know, almost every day of the week. So
how did Dan Whitney end up in Eagan?
Well, yeah.
at also a very busy veterinarian practice.
Yeah. So I went to school at Iowa State. And while I was there, I met my wife, and she lived across the street from me when I was an undergraduate. And she stuck with me through vet school, and her family is from the Minnetonka area up here. So she brought us up to Minnesota, brought us up here to be a little closer to her family.
And that seemed to work out pretty well.
It's worked out great. I'm really lucky and really fortunate for where I landed. The clinic that I'm at is just wonderful from all aspects, from working there, for the clients that we see. I mean, everything is just great, and so I've been really lucky to land there.
Well, Eagan Pet Clinic, and as I said, it's where we started because our first dog was a rescue, Toby, and you didn't know Toby, but you know of Toby.
Yeah, you bet.
And had a book written about Toby, which I might announce has been selected for the Dakota County Book Fair in Apple Valley on November 13th. My name was Toby, and we perpetuate his wonderful memory with that book. And we'd be happy to see people at the book fair in November. the 13th in Apple Valley at the Apple Valley Library, and which is in the professional building. In any event, but you knew Dakota, our Springer, who unfortunately developed a brain tumor, and you certainly know Katie, and our very vivacious and somewhat chubby little Springer, also a rescue. Your practice, the practice at Eagan Pet Clinic, is, I don't know how you handle as much as you do. There are, what, 5 or 6 vets?
Yeah, there's 5 full-time veterinarians there now, including myself, and there's 2 part-time veterinarians. And yeah, we stay very busy. There's lots of people walking through those doors every day, so it keeps us on our toes. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Now, in checking your background and bio, you thought you wanted to work with swine.
I went that direction for a little while. When I first started school, to try and give myself some more experience outside of just the world of growing up in my dad's clinic, I decided to take a job at the diagnostic laboratory at Iowa State. And so I worked for some veterinarians there who did a lot of pig work, and just some really great people. I really enjoyed it, and the experiences themselves were very different from what I've had, or what I had had up to that point. But at the end of the day, I just wasn't quite where I wanted to be, and missed working with small animals, missed working with clients, and it's just a little bit better fit for me in the long run.
There are probably millions, but certainly thousands and thousands of dogs up for adoption. And of course, there's what they call the pedigree dogs. And I heard somebody refer to an unpedigreed dog recently on the radio as a mongrel. But today's mongrel could be a new breed tomorrow as we come up with.
There's certainly a lot of them out there.
I don't know what. I mean, I hear these these names of. Give me a couple of the new.
Oh, there's a lot of different small breeds, especially that are coming out. Mix anything with a Shih Tzu, and you've got a new breed. Golden Doodles are definitely another big one. Yeah. We see a lot of Golden Doodles that are out in practice now. Now they've got mini Golden Doodles, so a little bit smaller. But yeah, there's a lot of mixes out there.
But there are so many homeless dogs, so many dogs in shelters, so many dogs that are actually put to sleep because they can't get homes for them. That, to me, the first place that you should go if you're looking for an animal is, and I'm a dog person, not a cat person, but is to one of these rescue organizations.
Yeah, there are so many animals out there, and seeing firsthand too, especially going to a shelter environment and see all of the animals that are there, and not all of those animals get adopted out, and there's certainly a lot of animals out there that are looking for homes that really need them, and so it's a great place to start.
And if you're adopting a dog, if you have a new puppy, give us the regimen of what you should do, what you should expect. And talk about shots also.
Yeah, so there's a lot to go through, and when you're first trying to decide what what kind of dog you want to get and where you're going to get them, you really have to kind of vet the place you're getting them from, and make sure that that you trust and feel comfortable with the people that you're getting the dog from as well.
In fact, we just passed a law last year here in Minnesota about these puppy mills and bringing them up to grade, because the conditions in these puppy mills were terrible.
Yeah, and so there's certainly some places out there where it'd be nice if we could get them fixed up, but also supporting them by adopting dogs from those places. You want to try and avoid them if you can. But there's a lot of good places out there, and there's a lot of good places to get dogs from that do things the right way. And so that's the first place to start. And obviously deciding what kind of dog is going to fit best for your guys' lifestyle at home too is very important as well. And then the veterinary process is a whole nother thing as well. It depends on where you get them from. Some of the breeders out there take care of quite a few things before you even pick them up and bring them home, while some of them don't take care of very much at all. So usually when we have puppies come in, it all depends on what age they come in to come see us. And so we usually start out at about 8 weeks of age is when we like to get started with vaccines if we can. Sometimes a little bit earlier, but a lot of times we don't like to wait longer than that. And it's usually about every month or so we like to see them come in and we get vaccines done for the first 3 months. There are 8, 12, and 16 weeks is kind of the ideal time frame for them to come in.
And what kind of vaccines are we talking about?
Well, we've got a number of different vaccines that are there, and it depends on risk, which is part of the equation. But we do have some vaccines that we recommend to everybody, regardless of their risk. There's some diseases that are out there that we don't see very much of today, and actually a few of them that I vaccinate for that personally, I've never seen. And as long as we keep up our vaccinations as we've done, hopefully we don't have to.
Well, rabies is mandatory, right?
Well, rabies actually, by state laws, is not mandatory. It kind of depends on the county and the district that you're in.
Oh,
and
is that
so,
right?
Yeah, and so we at least at our clinic, we require it for any of our frequent visitors or anybody that's coming in for anything to come see us, require that to get done. It is required to get a city license, which technically we're required to get in Eagan, and so from that standpoint it is, but the state doesn't actually mandate it as being required. And then distemper is what we call the other core vaccine. We call it distemper, but it covers a number of vaccines, parvovirus being the big one for our puppies, and that's the one that is one of those really nasty diseases that if vaccinated appropriately, works very, very well for them.
Now, years ago, you didn't hear about heartworm. And again, that is something that has become much more prevalent with animals.
Yeah, it has become more prevalent, but also, at least in our neck of the woods up here, so many of our dogs are on their preventive medication to try and prevent those diseases that thankfully we don't see them all that much up here. The southeast United States is probably kind of the hotbed for heartworm disease, whereas up here, Lyme disease is probably our biggest infectious issue that we see quite a bit.
Fleas and ticks.
Fleas and ticks. There's certainly, there's so many ticks up here that all of our dogs are running into them, not just the ones that are running out and hunting and running through the brush, just our normal neighborhood dogs are running into ticks every day up here as well. So. Yeah.
So what do you do? What's your preventative
for
both heartworm and flea and tick?
So other than our vaccines for our dogs, we like to keep them on monthly preventives. So they get a pill, or in most cases a little pill or a tablet that covers them against heartworm disease, intestinal parasites, fleas, and ticks as well. Usually you have to do a combination of products because there's not one good one out there that really covers everything for all of our dogs. So usually one that covers the heartworm disease and parasites, and then the other one that covers the fleas and the ticks. But that's an important thing to have on board for our dogs. Their heartworm disease, while maybe we don't see it all that commonly, it's very preventable with the medications, and it's a pretty nasty disease. If our dogs pick it up, it's not a fun, easy, or cheap treatment to take care of it, and it's certainly, if it runs its course long enough, it can be fatal for them as well.
Dogs and cats are also subject to a lot of diseases that humans are subject to.
Yeah, so we see some, and there's a lot of similarities between human medicine and veterinary medicine as well. Certainly there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of similarities there too. And as far as the veterinary world goes, the medicine is advancing as well, just along with the human medicine, and there's just a lot more out there that we can do to treat our dogs and to manage diseases, it's an ever-changing field of study.
So you have to sort of continue your education.
Oh, you bet.
On a regular basis.
You bet. Yeah. So when we're licensed in the state of Minnesota, they require us to go to continuing education, whether it be seminars, conferences, those kind of things that we have to do every 2 years. We're required to log a certain amount of hours for that, so that we keep up to date with current medicine.
And of course, in the clinic, it's not just giving shots. You also do all sorts of things, operations and otherwise.
Yeah, so it's being in general practice at least. So when I went to veterinary school, there's 4 years of school, and once you get done with those 4 years, then you get your veterinary degree, and at that point you're a general practitioner. And so that's all the more schooling than I had then after that point. But if you want to, you can go back and specialize beyond that into all different fields of study, just like in human medicine, a surgeon, a dermatologist, an oncologist. And so in our realm of the world, as a general practitioner, we kind of do all of those things. We wear all of those hats. to a certain degree. And then, you know, if we get into a situation where something is kind of beyond our expertise or what we see on a common daily basis, then we've got those specialists out there to help us out.
So do you have people within the practice at Eagan Pet Clinic who specialize particularly in various aspects?
We have doctors that prefer certain parts of medicine and not necessarily have a specialty degree in that area, but kind of focus some of their efforts on those spots. So we've got a veterinarian that really likes dentistry, and she's very good at what she does whenever she gets into the dental aspect of medicine. And so, but no, none of us have any special or differing degrees, but we definitely have those parts of medicine that we prefer. So.
And yours, what would that be?
Well, I like a little bit of everything, and that's probably why I'm in, you know, a general practice setting. I thought long and hard for a while whether or not I ever wanted to specialize, and I just decided, you know, there's no one part of it that I like so much more than anything else that I'd want to do that for the rest of my life. But I generally enjoy surgery, I enjoy dentistry, and just preventive medicine as well. You know, the normal routine exams, doing vaccines, and everything that we can do to try and prevent diseases from coming about is important as well.
Dental diseases are not something that we heard about years ago, but they are today. Now, we have a dog who will not tolerate an electric toothbrush and won't tolerate just a regular toothbrush.
Yeah.
What do you do in a situation
well,
like that?
Yeah, it gets very tough. Dentistry is certainly a part of medicine now for us that's growing so much, and we do a lot more of it. I think we're paying more attention to it now, and it's not that dogs didn't have dental disease in the past, but you know, we're taking better care of it. And so brushing is one of those big things for taking care of their teeth, just like ours, that can really help out. It's tough to get a dog used to it, at least initially, and probably an important thing is for...
I take out the toothbrush and Katie disappears. One of the few times she's not right at my side.
Yeah, and so one thing I like to tell people is when you get a new dog, when they're younger and they're more acceptable to new things and want to learn new things, that's a great time to start getting in and around their mouth, whether or not you're taking a toothbrush to their mouth or not, you know, lifting up their lips, putting your fingers in around their mouth and getting them used to it. If you kind of get them acclimated to it, then they'll be more accepting to it. As an example, I talk about brushing teeth every day when I'm in the practice, but I'm not very good at doing it on my own dog. But he's very used to it. You know, he's so used to me just ever since he was a puppy, doing whatever I need to with him that he'll lay on his back if I need him to and let me open up his mouth and get in there and do whatever I need to. And so now, that being said, we've got a lot of dogs that aren't used to it when they're adults. And so if they're not really accepting the toothbrush, usually you have to take it in a stepwise fashion. Get them used to it if you can. And some dogs just won't. But if you have the time to do it, starting out without the toothbrush, they make toothpaste that's flavored for dogs, and so they like it a little bit more. It's like a treat for them. Getting used to them having
that's
that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they have it flavored, so they like it a little bit more, and then it doesn't have any fluoride in it either, so they can swallow as much of it as they want without it being an issue. And you take it, give it to them as a treat, at least initially, and then you can start getting to the point where maybe you're rubbing that in their mouth with your fingers, and as they get more and more used to it, then introduce the toothbrush once they're a little more comfortable with it. For dogs that aren't going to get used to the toothbrush at all, you can try using some of the enzymatic cleaners or toothpaste they've got out there with just a like a little cotton square or something like that to apply it, or they've got a ton of products out there now.
I see products advertised that say is the equivalent of brushing the dog's teeth. I don't understand how that can really work.
Yeah, there's nothing that's going to be as good as brushing the teeth. And so if you can get in there and actually brush your dog's teeth, that's going to keep them in the best shape that you can as far as what you can do at home. But and for anybody that's interested in some of the products that are out there, there's tons of them, and so it's kind of hard to decide which ones are really going to make a difference or not. They actually have a website now called the Veterinary Oral Health Council, and if you go to that website, it's a group of veterinary dentists that endorse some of these products that are out there. And so that's usually where I turn if I'm recommending some products to clients as far as what I think are ones that are actually beneficial and can be helpful. And so.
Now, we live in a society where obesity is a problem. As I look around at a lot of pets today, I see that it's a carryover into their lives as well. What can you say about that?
It's beyond dental disease, probably one of the biggest things that we end up seeing on a day-to-day basis as far as what's affecting our pets. And the tough thing about it is now there are so many dogs that are overweight, cats that are overweight, that it's almost, you know, you see an animal that's at an ideal weight, and some people might think that they're too skinny, you know, and they're not being nourished well enough. And so it's a little bit of a, you know, we have to try and change the culture and how people think about their dogs and keep them at the weights that we want them to be at, because keeping your pet at an ideal weight is just very beneficial long term for their health. They've been shown to live longer. Arthritis is a big issue for a lot of our pets, and that oftentimes comes into play with our larger dogs and cats. So,
diabetes, is that a problem for dogs?
Mm-hmm. We do see it in dogs, and we see it in cats as well. We tend to see more cats at our clinic that we have to deal with diabetes for, but we certainly have dogs that come in and have that issue as well. And
we unfortunately know of our own experience in terms of tumors and cancers with dogs. Heart disease.
Heart disease, yep. Probably, I would say, you know, the most common things that we end up seeing is dental disease for sure, and obesity. Those are, I mean, the majority of our dogs that we have coming in, we have those talks quite a bit about their teeth and about their weight. Skin issues are probably the other number one big thing for us. Allergies is a pretty big problem for a lot of our dogs. Whether
with
or not
everything that's sprayed on our properties now, I can see where skin disease is a big problem.
So we see a lot of skin disease issues, ear issues, which we kind of wrap up into skin issues as well, and seasonal allergies. They're a very common thing that we see, especially this time of year. The last month or so, it's been very busy as far as an allergy season goes.
How many times a day should you feed your dog?
Well, that's a good question. I like to feed dogs about twice a day if you can. If you are more apt to feed them a few more times a day, that's perfectly fine. We do have some people that feed their dogs once a day, and there's not necessarily a big problem with that. We have some dogs that can do just fine with that, but I like to feed them twice a day if possible.
Oh, breakfast and dinner, in effect.
Breakfast and dinner, yeah, just when you're sitting down at the dinner table. So, yep.
Now, we've had a lot of publicity lately and warnings about coyotes preying on small animals, and not quite as much here in the Eagan area as in other areas around the Twin Cities, but what can you do to caution against that?
Well, it's certainly a concern, and depending on the neighborhood that you're in and where you're at, obviously that'll kind of dictate how concerned you need to be about it. But if you're going to be out later on in the night, especially in the wintertime when you don't have to be out that late for it to be dark outside, you need to be cautious about where you're at. Having a flashlight on you as well, kind of help illuminate things for you, and stay in areas that you're comfortable with, and probably when it's real dark outside, try and stay out of wooded areas and places where you're not really in a very urban environment. So especially you have to take the size of your dog into account as well. And smaller your dog, the more risk you're probably going to be as far as having an issue.
You know, when they say small dogs, what are they talking about? 10, 20 pounds?
Yeah. I mean, if your dogs are any size dog, you have the potential, if a coyote's going to come around, that they will come up to you. And you know, a coyote could cause problems for any size dog. But the smaller the dog is, obviously, the less fight they're going to have back if something does come about. And so, something to keep in mind too if you're out walking your dogs.
And of course, in Eagan, you're not allowed to discharge a firearm within city limits. So, assuming that a coyote gets your dog, you can't shoot it. Yeah,
from a protection standpoint, I guess it really depends on how bad things get. But physically, if you do have a small dog and you're out and you're concerned about where you are, or there is a coyote that comes around, pick up your dog. Pick your dog up off the ground and get him out of harm's way if possible, and then turn around and walk back home as soon as you can.
Use a machete on him.
Yeah, I guess that is one thing you could carry around with you. Yeah,
I don't think they're illegal. But What other cautions do you have for pet owners?
Well, you know, this time of year, we've got a few months yet until we're getting into the holiday seasons here, but that's always a big time of year where we have issues as far as our dogs getting into things around the house, whether it be food, whether it be decorations, but you know, that's always a concern with any of our dogs. They don't always know what they should and shouldn't eat, and that time of year, at least holiday season, brings up a lot of those issues. And so make sure you have things stored properly at home. Plants as well, if you have any you know, flowers or plants or Christmas trees or things you're bringing into the house, you obviously want to make sure that that they're not chewing or gnawing on that or ingesting anything like that. And then food as well. You know, we have a lot of candy around for Halloween season, and chocolate's obviously a big issue for our dogs and our cats. And so
yeah, chocolate for some reason is very detrimental for dogs in particular, I think.
Yeah.
Is that all chocolate, or is it milk chocolate, or is it dark chocolate?
It's actually all chocolate. The part that they can't metabolize is an all chocolate, but the darker the chocolate gets, the more toxic it becomes. So milk chocolate is usually much less of an issue if a dog, let's say, gets into a candy bar than a dog that gets into baker's chocolate or cocoa powder. If you're cooking, that's going to be a little bit bigger of a problem.
Yeah, we had to take Toby to an emergency room, as a matter of fact, because obviously it was a Sunday and you were closed on a Sunday before you were there.
Yep.
And because he had found a bunch of chocolate candy when we had friends over, and we left the room and the candy disappeared with Toby.
Doesn't take very long.
And no, he had a good time. I don't think he enjoyed the after effects of it.
Yeah, yep. So if they do get into that situation, just like what you guys did, get them into the veterinarian as soon as possible. In a lot of situations, if we catch it earlier, obviously the better. If we need to, we can make them bring some of that back up.
And there are 24-hour emergency veterinarians.
Yep, there's a number of them in the area around here. Probably the closest one, at least to our clinic, that we use a lot is down in Apple Valley off of Pennock Avenue. And so that's one that we use pretty commonly, but there's a lot of them in the area around here. So lots of 24/7 care, which makes it nice. You know, we can't be open every hour of the day, and so there's always someone there to help out if needed.
Now, in addition to 5 to 7 veterinarians, you have a big staff.
We do. It takes a big support staff to get that all done for what we're seeing in a day. And the people that we've got at the clinic are just amazing, from top to bottom.
They've been long-timers, many of them, and very dedicated.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yep. They're very passionate about what they're doing, and
really.
And they enjoy it too. And when they care about what they're doing and they're passionate about what they're doing, it makes work fun too. And
so, give us the address one more time. Eagan Pet Clinic.
Yep. So Eagan Pet Clinic, we're on Ron Road, 4395 Ron Road, right in the nook of 35E and 77.
And when you get there, just ask for Dr. Dan.
Yep.
Dan Whitney, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank
Pleasure
you very much for having me.
Okay.